there, you're listening to the Battlefield Community Podcast, brought to you by Don't Revive Me Bro.
What's going on, guys? It's Colin, and welcome to episode 32 of the Don't Revive Me Bro Battlefield Community Podcast. Today is April the 1st, 2012, and while it is April Fool's Day, this is no joke. We have with us today Mr. Alan Kertz, a.k.a. demize99, who is the lead gameplay designer for Battlefield 3, and with me, as always, is my fine co-host, Mr. Chris Red Dragons. How's it going today, gents?
Going well.
Doing really
Excellent.
Well. Excellent. Thanks for coming back on, Alan. I know we spoke a couple months ago before patches, before all this DLC announcement, so we're glad to have you back on to kind of discuss all that.
Yeah, I think I was checking. It was just before the turn of the year, actually, so it's been a good full 3 months or more.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
So, what have you been up to lately? You're still with Battlefield 3, still doing senior gameplay designer?
I am working on Battlefield 3 in what I would call an advisory role, which is to say I'm not full-time, but I'm still very much working with the team, and specifically my team is doing the gameplay updates. So I am not doing stuff myself, but this last patch is my work, is my tweaking guide, I would say. So that's why I'm here and talking, and in the future we'll be hearing more from some other guys who are stepping up to the plate now.
Oh, perfect. So this is your baby. This patch is all you? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I wouldn't say it's all me. No.
You don't want to take all the blame, huh?
No, I don't know. Depends on who you ask whether I get blame or credit. But yes, I do think that this was the direction. The direction of this gameplay update, the gameplay tweaks in this update, is out of my head. And going forward, I think we'll see some more guys, Gustav Halling, Nicholas Figueres, and Stormonster Tim Shell will be picking up that flag and running with it.
Okay, so wonderful.
Perfect. So is this all stemming from, you used to be very active, not to say you aren't right now, but used to be very active tweeting the different tweaks you were thinking of. Is that this patch now, did that all stem from those earlier discussions?
Yeah, so I think the process of getting to this point where we are with this patch has actually been really successful for us. In terms of interacting with the community, we put out several changelogs on Battlelog. We ran some things on Twitter. We ran some things on Reddit. We also sent some actual data pre-patch over to the guys at simfic.com, who have been doing the Battlefield weapon charts. And I think we got some huge response from all of those. The Simfic stuff especially was useful, where community members were able to directly comment on not just a changelog of a direction, but an actual value change, and say, this was too much, this was too little. And we took direct changes from that, and they are in this patch. So that was hugely valuable for us.
Interesting. Yeah, because that's something I was reading about Valve doing now with CSGO, kind of getting pros involved and tweaking different values. So that's good to hear that you guys went that far.
I think that that definitely made this patch better than it would have been if we had just dropped it onto the players. We were able to avoid specifically some things with the PDWs, where there was a tweak made and may or may not have made a huge difference gameplay-wise, but with the feedback we were able to find a better way of doing it, or the Model 98B, where we had originally done a damage reduction in order to accompany a new the single-shot bolt-action new hitbox in the upper chest, and people reacted to that as, hey, wait, that was the big deal with that gun. And again, we were able to go in and do a change to the way that was implemented to preserve the original gameplay and incorporate it into this new style. And that's directly as a result of what the community has done.
That's good.
Yeah, depending on, some people are for it, some people are against it, and we definitely saw a lot of that when you're originally discussing it. Is that something you were kind of hoping to kind of keep normal? Like, you're hoping people would be satisfied with the sniper rifles when the game originally shipped, or were you all always looking at some sort of tweak to it depending on feedback?
Well, we looked actually back to BF2, given that this is a BF3, and looked at the damage model there and sampled from it quite heavily. Obviously, we also took some experience from the Bad Company spin-off series, and having worked on those myself, that experience directly relates. But back in BF2, there were no body shot, one-shot snipers. Doesn't matter what rifle you had, up to and including the 50 cal rifle that was in there. And we thought we would use that as a starting point. I think players reacted to that quite strongly and said, well, Battlefield 3 has taken away a play style, the aggressive recon style that players actually picked up on. And I wanted to find a way in this update to allow that play style, but also balance it so it's not as powerful as it was in the Bad Company series, where a good close combat sniper could basically be better than an assault rifle. And I think this upper body chest hitbox gives us a way of doing that without completely removing a play style, and makes it gives it a range, kind of a 15 meters, and you better hit that or you're going down, and I think that's good.
Yeah, I think that I've had quite a bit of time, as much as is possible, given that it only came out on PC on Thursday, but I definitely have played a lot with a lot of the assault rifles, carbines, and PDWs. I mean, that's sort of my play style. And I do like the weapon balances that were made. I mean, foregrip suppressor used to be pretty much the only combo that you used. And now, based on the situation, you have to kind of play around and figure out what's the best setup for, the map you're playing, for the range that you're going to be engaging at. And, so I was very happy with the gunplay changes. And so one of the things, and I think that the feedback that I've gotten, on my videos and going through some of the forums is that, some people don't like the added recoil. I personally do. I think a lot of people are in favor of that. And the one thing that's been a huge adjustment, and I want to kind of get your thoughts on this, was the change to the suppression mechanic. So I think that, having a notable impact from suppression in the game is fantastic. Because it certainly highlights tactics and that sort of thing. But you guys, how far did you tune it up in this patch?
Well, I think the way this suppression mechanic worked changed a little bit this patch. And before, when we had suppression prior to this update, suppression really didn't play a whole lot of a role in the combat. And we got a lot of feedback from players saying, well, hey, I've got this machine gun, and I'm laying 200 rounds down on a sniper, and he still drops a shot straight in my head. What's up with that? Shouldn't the suppression mechanic mean more?
Yep. I absolutely agree with that.
So the needle has definitely swung in that direction, and I kind of look at balancing as a bit of a pendulum. You can, or a metronome, I think, is even better, because you kind of you need to find your min and your max, and where was too little and where is too much. Yeah. I think, and this is my opinion, that we've probably found a place where it's a bit too much, and we had a place where it's a bit too little, and I would like to find a somewhere middle ground there. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I like the way it works when you're being suppressed intentionally. I think that, having that accuracy, be all over the place, have it difficult for you to manage your weapon and return fire while suppressed, I think that that's great. What's happening now is so much accidental suppression where, you're going towards an objective. You're not the one taking fire. Bullets are flying maybe sort of in your general direction, but you get that huge suppressive effect. Or when you come face to face with someone and are in a gunfight, the suppressive effect has a huge impact as well. Like, even if you start firing first, your accuracy winds up going crazy. I'm wondering if it's like, I'm no expert, but it seems like, even a sniper on a rooftop with an SKS can suppress like half of a map now, whereas before, suppression had no impact. I'm feeling personally that it's too much, and that would kind of be. There are people that love the suppression mechanic, don't get me wrong, but I think that one is definitely... It makes the gunplay too sloppy in just a 1v1 encounter where suppression really wasn't the intended tactic. and it's been frustrating, at times rage-inducing.
I guess that's why it shows up as a hot topic, you know. The Alt F4 and then hit the forums or hit the Reddit or hit the Twitter or whatever.
I've Alt F4'd out of a couple of games with the suppression. I'm going to admit it.
Well, is that something like? It's very hard to please all the people. Well, it's impossible to please all the people all the time.
Absolutely, never going to happen.
Yeah. Now, do you take, like, obviously, you know, say somebody gives you an idea and you think it's good? Yeah, you know, suppression does need to be increased. Are you guys relying on still playtesters at this point, or kind of more community feedback to gauge whether those values are correct or not?
You know, it's definitely both. We've been playtesting that suppression mechanic for about the last 3 months internally, and we are constantly daily playtesting, sometimes more than several hours a day, more than just one playtest a day. And our playtests are usually at least an hour. You need that much time just to get into it, you know. Mm-hmm. But and actually, when we dialed up suppression effects, what has gone out in the patch is less than what we originally dialed it up to. So,
oh God.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was definitely a clear, like, whoa, okay, push those bars a little too far. I think the biggest change is, and I think you hit on it yourself, is actually the kind of incidental suppression, where we did slightly increase the range around the player that he receives some suppressive effect, and that was as a direct counter to guys in windows, guys behind a small protective thing, and the rounds that were hitting just in front of or around that window or whatever were giving no suppression. I think what's also happened is we have there's a control slide inside the way the system works where a bullet that's closer does more suppression than a bullet that's farther away. And we adjusted the farther away bullets to be a little bit more effective. I think that's gone too far. I'm happy with the radius, the range around the player that they get to the suppression. I think we'll go back and take a step back in the future, and those incidental hits will be less effective again. The other thing that's kind of an accidental way of looking at things, and we changed a bit of the way suppression falls off, and it doesn't take any longer to fall off, but during that fall off time, you don't get your accuracy back quite as fast as you did previously to the patch. And I think that one is something that really needs to go. Once you start being not suppressed, you need to be back in the firefight, and that's taking too long, and I can see why that's frustrating.
Yeah, I think what some of the engagements I think that I would have been frustrated with would be, you know, you're doing something like attacking a hallway in Bazaar or something like that. You know you're being suppressed. You return some fire to suppress back, jump through the hallway. You know you're in the clear, but you're not able to engage in a gunfight immediately afterwards. Your accuracy's still all over the place. You know, you could have the drop on them like crazy. So I can see where you're coming from with that, and that kind of makes sense as far as what I'm feeling, and you know, some of the folks I've talked to, how they feel about it as well.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting part about it is the feeling of, you know, I've seen definitely even in the chat when I'm, you know, playing around, is the deviation is so huge is so punishing, and you know, the recoil's really changed, and the deviation actually hasn't changed at all. It's the same level of effect. It's that you reach that suppression level quicker and you stay there longer. So players are feeling what was already there more. And I think there's a sweet spot there where getting that right is definitely something going forward, and something we'll look into. I hope that it's not game breaking for people. But we are looking into what are our options for doing that update. Some of these things can be client-side, some of these can be server-side, and I can't really say right now when we might get around to making a change, but it's definitely on the table.
Yeah. So I think what I've actually found is that it depends on the ping of the server that I'm playing on. So, I mean, I play with some friends in Europe and stuff like that, and it's game-breaking there for me because I'm suppressed before I know I'm in a gunfight. Whereas if I'm playing on a North American server, 50 ping, 60 ping, it's okay. It's still a little bit too over the top in my opinion, but it's playable. But now I can't play it over 100 ping without it being just overwhelming.
That's an interesting point. I mean, we do simulation when we do our playtests of different latency levels, but that's definitely something that didn't show up. And for me, one of the I've seen actually some people suggest, well, they should put a patch out every 5 days on the PC and then let them test it, and that has obvious knock-on effects of showing super favoritism to one platform, which is I've been pretty vocal about we want the game to be the same. We have made that mistake before. We've done Bad Company 1 and we said, oh, PC guys won't like this at all. It's not for them. We won't ship it there. And the PC guys went, dude, why have you left us out of this battlefield? And so Bad Company 2, we went and we brought console and PC. And you can see with the maturity of the console platform and multiplayer, and as well as the hardcore community that's built around the PC, you want those experiences to be the same and to have the same. When they aren't the same, I can actually see the gameplay fall apart. And that's specifically one of the big changes this patch has actually been the FAMAS. And just the nature of the patch update process and the way that Back to Karkan rolled out, there was some last-minute tweaks to the FAMAS that made one platform, didn't make the other. I'm not going to say which because I don't want to play the favorites, but let's just say that it was overpowered on one platform and still a little bit powerful on the others, but not quite as bad. And when you're pulling feedback from players, you don't always have the information on what platform they're playing on, so you can't always make that difference. I can look at the stats and I can see that it's really overpowered there. But if I start saying, well, I need to completely change the FAMAS, that gets trouble if it's different on different platforms, where one platform's like, dude, it's fine, and one platform's like, what? It's, that's all you're doing? It needs to be way more than that. And that's true if the numbers are different on the different platforms.
Right. Yeah. So, I know we were talking a bit before, and I know you are a big proponent of having all three platforms, as similar as possible. Now, because you have to deal with your partners, Sony and Microsoft and everything else, how much does that affect patches? And even though I know you can't answer it, any ETA or information on the Xbox patch coming up?
Well, I guess that's a pretty easy one since you already set it up that I can't say. I'm not in the right position to talk about when we can ship patches and what are the reasons that we do or don't ship updates on which platforms. I can say that our philosophy is to not favor any one platform. When I say that, I mean the patch may ship 1 week here and it may ship 1 week there, and there may be a time difference. But ultimately, when all platforms are up to the same level, and we would like those to be as quick as possible, then ultimately we would have the same game on our hands on both platforms. I think that if you look in forums, Microsoft and Sony start, oh, it's not EA, it's Microsoft, or it's Sony, or it's this, or wait, but we don't have to certify on PC, but PC went out a couple of days later. We get the patches out as soon as we can on each platform. And, if one rolls out and then one rolls out a few days later and then the next one rolls out a few days after that, okay, we're doing pretty good. For us, it's a big thing of I don't want to see a month between patches on different platforms. And unless there's a specific issue on a specific platform, PS3 VoIP, for example, we probably are going to do global patches that our intention is to roll them out as close to each other as possible. We're still working with our partners in Microsoft. Obviously, if it wasn't for the work that we did with Microsoft, we wouldn't even have the game on the Xbox platform. So that's a very important relationship to us. And I think pointing fingers and saying it's them, it's EA, it's PlayStation, it's Microsoft, or whatever, it doesn't do any part of the community any good. And I think it's better to just say, I understand the frustration of the Xbox users. I really understand that they're like, dude, second-class citizens, what's up? Mm-hmm. It's not the intent. It's not what we want to get out of it. It's an unfortunate circumstance, a series of unfortunate events, for lack of a better word.
Right. And is there any difference between a major patch like this last one and maybe like a smaller one that just tweaks a couple things? Like, is there urgency in patches, or does kind of Microsoft and Sony not differentiate between the two?
Without getting too much into it, you can... I mean, I'm not really involved super much in the actual interaction with Sony and Microsoft. I'm involved in the game, in the balance level, so I'm going to kind of refrain from answering on that, because I would just be speculating, and I'll leave that to some of the other guys on our operations and our support team to make a comment on that if it's appropriate.
And I just there's another thing I want to clear up real quick, is that you probably are not the person to talk to either about the hardcore playlist on the consoles, because I know I've been getting a ton of messages to ask you about that. So I'm going to ask, but I assume I know the answer, that you are not the one that deals with the playlists themselves.
No, I am not. However, I do sit in the same building with all those guys who work on it, and I think I've been a little bit quiet right now on the social media front, and that's a purposeful thing, to not be stealing the light from different groups here at DICE that are kind of taking up the reins. If it gets sent my way, it will definitely get forwarded on. I think that the best thing you guys can do, and I'm suspecting that the community is already doing this, is sending it over to Crash, sending it over to Zinto, making sure that our community managers see it, and that it's up on Battlelog, or even Joe Grant. And we're a passionate group of people at DICE, and if one guy at DICE can get a message and say, hey, can we get this fixed? It's every day that I see a discussion of the latest patch email bounced around in our internal mailing lists, and hey, is this a bug? Is this intended? Is this an issue? What do we need to fix? What do we need to do here? And so, communicating that to community managers is usually the best way. Those guys are keeping us in the loop really well.
How much do you guys look to get satisfaction in regards to the kind of community feedback?
Out of my area, dude, I really couldn't say.
I guess that would be more, community managers kind of passing the feedback along to you.
Yeah. I'm reading different things, and I definitely see links to get satisfaction here and there, and they get posted and they get seen. For me personally, my interest is to be reading what players are saying, whether it's on Get Satisfaction or Battlelog or the Mordor forums or Reddit or Twitter or wherever that I can get some information from. And we have a whole team that's dedicated to doing that as well, that are keeping me in the loop, that are summarizing player issues and crafting responses and figuring out how do we keep our community informed. And it's a super challenging thing, and there's a fine line you walk between saying information that can get you in trouble and saying what the players want to hear.
Right.
I try to walk that line by sometimes just shutting up.
Yeah, fair enough. And so I know we've got a couple other issues that people are mentioning in the chat that we want to discuss, and we'll get to that. But before that, on a positive note, what's kind of the thing that you're most proud of out of this patch? What do you think has made the biggest difference to gameplay, in your opinion?
The Usos 12 tweak? But seriously,
it depends depending on the map. Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, that was an oversight. Every other shotgun had this rate of fire reduction during the frag to specifically balance the frag, and somehow the Usoses didn't get that. And actually, the Jackhammer didn't have it either. They now both do, and I think that was basically the last straw in the in the fight for getting the frag rounds under control. So I'm quite happy with that. And oddly, I haven't seen a lot of feedback on that. So, and it's one of those things, you can look at the platforms and go, we've got 70 different guns in there. And, I think I put this on my Twitter before. On PC, the USOS was popular. On PS3, it was barely used. And on 360, it was somewhere in the middle. And that's one of those things where I'm just completely boggled, actually, because they're the exact same gun on all the platforms. So
that was
a very unique thing, and I've not ever seen anything like that. But I think now that we've got it in a good situation and a good spot, as far as what I'm really the most, besides my comedy answer, is that I'm really happy with the way that the attachment gameplay has gone. And I know it's going to take players a while to adjust to it, and their favorite combo might not be there anymore, or not be there, but not be as effective as it was. But what we are really seeing is we're looking at stats and going, I can look at what are players taking into battle, what accessories are they taking, what rank, how was their kill-death ratio with those accessories, how's their score per minute and kills per minute. And when we were breaking all that stats down, and generally there was a go-to win on pretty much every weapon that you could run it with, which was silencer and foregrip.
Right.
And I hear the argument of, well, there's only foregrip or bipod to choose from. Like, okay, yeah, I can see that. And we've done a change where, having the foregrip gives you a little bit of an accuracy penalty in zoom. But actually, if you're still running the suppressor or you're running the heavy barrel, you're going to be as accurate or better accuracy than a naked gun. So I think it balances itself out, and it brings to the game. I've already seen players, running more bipods, or maybe running no accessory, or switching up to a laser sight because they hit the shoot, or going heavy barrel, or if recoil's just a problem for them, going flash suppressor. Whereas flash suppressor had like 0.1% usage before the patch, people are actually trying it out now and going, hey, this might give me something that I was missing before. And that to me is a huge thing. It gives so much more depth.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think that a good job was definitely done on the attachment balances. I've had fun playing around with a bunch of different combinations, and some work better than others. Some also seem, and maybe this is in my mind, to work a little bit better in countering the suppressive effect while they're not as accurate or as good when you're not being suppressed. Like a heavy barrel with no foregrip is great if you get the first shots on the target. However, if you're experiencing any suppression, having a flash suppressor and foregrip is kind of nice, and it's it kind of depends on the situation. So I definitely personally think that a great job was done there. Enhancements to the mini map. There's some audio enhancements that seem to be in there as well that are really great
footsteps.
Also. So yeah,
you can hear footsteps. And I think one of the big things, and I want to give a big props out here to the guys I mentioned before, Gustav Harling and Nicholas Figueres. They're heading up the development team for the Close Combat's upcoming DLC, and it's been their attention to detail in that kind of close quarters battle area that's brought up things like footsteps, that's brought up things like the shouts and things like that. That while they, if you're playing out in the open fields of Caspian and you can't hear someone's footsteps, well, he's 50 meters from you, you probably shouldn't hear it. When you're talking about listening for a guy about to round the corner, that's a lot more important. And already I can see the benefit of the close combat pack coming in to the battlefield experience for all the players, whether they're close combat players or whether they're open field players. At some point, there's still going to be the guy around the corner, and it's important that you hear that. And we've been able to focus on that and enhance that experience for all of our players.
Excellent. Yeah, it seems like you guys looked at a lot of different issues, and it wasn't just like, okay, you want to patch the USAS? Okay, let's patch the USAS and be done with it and get a tiny little patch. You looked at issues across the board and tried to get as many ones in that you could, in a reasonable timeline, I guess. You could spend all year patching it and put out one major 8 gig patch, but that's not really going to help anybody. If you had unlimited time, you could get it done tomorrow, and you can get the patch out the next day, what would be one thing that you'd love to add to the game tomorrow?
Well, then I think my operations team is going to shoot me for this, but battle recorder.
Yeah.
There's literally nobody at DICE who doesn't want to do it. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the hard things about being on dev team, being looking and seeing the community say, we really want this, and like, we'd really like to give it to you. And what we're looking at is it a quality experience for our players right now? And the answer is no, it's not. It's unusable junk. You know, we have this thing that we kind of use for some of like of our TV ads and some of our videos and things like that. Mm-hmm. It's unusable, and we have a dedication to quality and making sure that what we put out is usable by players. And I think there's still a drive within DICE within the DICE employees definitely to embrace that side and embrace that social thing. I'm amazed at some of the videos that are out there without it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That would be my big one thing. I think that would make a huge difference, and hopefully sometime in the future, from a personal point of view, that's not an official Battlefield thing. I would love to see it.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have been wanting to do it for a while, and until those technical limitations are kind of reached. Because I know certain people, apparently you can do certain things to kind of get into it, but it crashes the game and all these sorts of things. And that would just be a disaster if you released, hey, guess what, releasing Battle Recorder, and it crashes everybody's games, and that would be good.
Yeah, so it just wouldn't work for us right now. I mean, I think we picked up an echo. I'm hearing a bit of an echo.
I'm not, but folks are saying in the chat, yes.
I'm an echo. Maybe gone now.
Let's do a check then.
Testing.
Echo check.
A little bit on mine. Anybody have the stream open at all?
No echo? Yes echo? It's fine. All right. We're kind of in between, so let's soldier on.
Indeed. So I think one of the other things that I've seen, if I can just bring one up myself and save you guys the trouble, is a tank battle perception. And that tanks are kind of, people are saying, well, they're paper boxes now. I think that,
yes.
And that's a rough one. One of the things that I've heard is, oh, RPGs are way powered up. I'm like, we haven't changed them. And, I'm real aware of the fact that, we can change one thing and it has a knock-on effect. And so I went back and I did the real-world testing, RPG, tank sitting there, all the angles, all the sides. It hasn't changed.
Mm-hmm.
There is a perception issue. There are some things that have definitely changed. And unfortunately, most of those are accidental knock-ons. And this is one of the things that frustrates me personally with running a big patch like this, is you're going to get some knock-on effects. And, we try to avoid those where possible. Before the show, we were talking about running out earlier in the show, I think, running out data to the community before the patch even launched. And I got some static here.
Yeah, I was getting a little... Colin, can you talk for a second?
Is it me?
It is. It's Robo-Colin.
Robo-Colin, give me a second. It's a sec.
Robo-Colin makes an appearance once an episode.
Fair enough.
I'm back. Is it any better?
Yes,
What's
that's
better?
much better.
Perfect. I found the Robo-Colin solution, by the way.
Oh, excellent.
It's not a bandwidth issue. It's a Mac USB headset issue. So in the future, it's still going to happen, but the fix will be fast. So.
Oh, cool. Good to know.
So yeah, sorry. Carrying on.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely been a shift in balance between air and tank. And some of that is intentional, guided shells, and some of that is unintentional, which is to say that I think the attack helicopters have gotten some buffs in terms of their weaponry against the tank. That's pushed things in their favor. I really, really have to be very careful to not say we will definitely make an update to this in the future. We will definitely make a change. And there's all sorts of fun reasons for that, namely keeping my job. But I'll just we had a discussion in house, how to handle this and what to put out, and what I can say to our community is, it was not a month ago we announced 3 DLC packs. And I think that's an indicator of the level of support that we intend to continue to have for Battlefield. Battlefield 3 specifically. And it wasn't but 6 to 9 months ago that we put out a patch for Battlefield 2 and a patch for 2142, which are 3 and 2 years respectively. You know, they're that old and we're still patching them. I think that we see such a lifetime on a Battlefield product that we want to make sure that players know that we are continuing to support, and we have plans to support, and we have a history of supporting. And yes, we could always be better, we could be faster, we could turn a patch around every week, and maybe there's some easy solutions for us looking forward in the future, and there's definitely discussions going on how we can improve that process and improve the clarity to the player. But I think that the 3 packs that we have announced going forward is a good indicator of what level of support you can expect from the Battlefield 3 series, or Battlefield 3 game.
Yeah, I think it was kind of one of those things where a couple of adjustments happened in concert to kind of swing that pendulum, or the metronome, I guess, as we talked about. Because one thing that I have noticed, even with like reactive armor, for example, like a chopper can take down a tank in under 3 seconds from 100 health, so you don't even have the chance to repair it. And the effectiveness of the repair tool has been dialed down a bit as well to kind of encourage, I assume, sort of a tank team, keeping a tank healthy, where a tank with one engineer behind it could stay pretty much at full health before, which, you know, I agree that was broken. So, and javelins, whether they're more effective or they just work properly now, they really, really pack a wallop now.
Yeah, I think again, this is one of those places where we pulled a lever, and in fact, we may have pulled 2 levers and should have only pulled 1. You know, you can say in hindsight, like, and I see it on, did you guys even playtest this? You know, and it's really, really tough internally to playtest and get the same results that you're going to get live in a live environment. Players play differently. Players, you know, we can have, you know, 200 people playtesting, which is about the size of dice, and we've got about 12 million people out there with a copy of Battlefield. There's a bit of a difference, you know, and so the stuff that shows up day one, and we kind of facepalm in the office and go, well, okay, well, better get on that. So, you know, the repair tool might have swung too far one direction. Maybe we bring it back a little bit. And I know of some specific knock-ons with the helicopter stuff that we need to address. The rockets have gone up in power because of another change to the way that they worked, and that had a roll-on effect. And the same thing with the TV missile. You know, I think that's become incredibly powerful.
Right. Yeah, and people are yapping at me too to mention that heat seekers seem to be not working correctly in the jets.
Yeah,
I've done my duty, and I've thrown it out there.
Yeah, and we do have issues with each patch. We know that. And going forward, obviously, we would try to minimize that, and we're looking at ways to do that. You know, I'm aware of the heat seeker issue. It actually shows up more on really fast-moving targets. And, you know, for whatever reason, when we're playtesting it internally, we weren't having the problems. And we put it live, and it's like, boom, wait, this... oh god, it's out there all the time, you know, and I hop into a server and I run into it, and I was flying the same jet a month ago internally and not having the issue. You know, it's a thing of players playing differently, and it would be nearly impossible for us to put a patch out this big and not run into some issues. For me, what I'm hoping seems to be the case is people are having specific gameplay issues, and it's not a 1.3 Battlefield 2 patch where the game just doesn't work. Yeah. You know, like, I mean, it's like, ooh, if the patch goes out, everyone can still play, and then they can complain about playing. Okay. That's you know, like, I'm complaining because I don't like this. It's when players are like, I can't play at all, and then we're really up the proverbial creek without a paddle.
Yeah. So I know Danny and I spoke about this, I don't know if it's on the podcast or not before, but when you guys do internal play tests, it's almost gentlemanly. Is that the right word? Where you guys, play the game, you arm objectives, arm the crates, everything else. Whereas when you release it into the wild, like nobody's really thought of doing MAV elevators or anything like that. Is that kind of the case?
You guys don't play like the douchebags that we encounter in public servers. I think is what Chris is getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to play like a douchebag when you got to sit across the lunch table from the guy another half an hour.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, and I wouldn't, I would say that we definitely have players who are there interested in pushing the boundaries, and we are pushing and testing things, and the nature of reality is that you end up with a place where you've got somebody who likes to push the boundaries internally in playtests, likes to, use the exploit, use the cheat. And at some point you got to say, like, okay, now you're being disruptive to the flow of actually fixing this stuff. Like, okay, you proved your point with that. And
right.
I could see how that actually, then that player, like, next time he finds an exploit, he may not push it as hard, and so it may not come up as hard for us.
Did he pay for it or what?
Some things, it's just like, I was heavily involved with the MAV elevator thing, and it's literally one of those facepalm moments where you're like, wait, so nobody ever proned on it? And it's like,
yeah.
Well, I didn't think of doing that, and it went through a whole QA pass, and we actually failed it once because the QA guy found a way around it, and we fixed it, and we did it again, and it was like, oh no, I can't do that, and okay, you tried all these different things, and it's like, Battlefield is a sandbox, right? And eventually some kid's going to find a way to throw sand, whether or not it's against the rules or not.
Right.
And if you have to, sit down at lunch with every kid, the guy who throws sand is ending up sitting in the corner on his own. So it's, for me, ideally the best scenario is probably to do a WoW style thing of a test realm or a thing like that. And the problem is that that's a very, I don't want to use the word expensive in terms of dollar cost, but in terms of time cost. It's like, okay, do we focus on trying to make this patch and, updating Battlefield and working on the next set of DLC and, giving players more content and fixing the issues, or do we put this test realm up? What level do we have to balance things? And that's always an interesting question that, it's kind of like one of those, if you had infinite resources, would we be doing it this way? Sure. We don't have infinite resources.
Exactly.
And it's not a perfect world, and it's not a perfect game. I think it's damn good. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the team that put this update together. I'm very proud of the guys who continue to work on Battlefield every day. I'm extremely happy to be a part of that team and a part of the success of it. And I'm also very happy with the way that players have responded, both with positive feedback and with negative feedback. Because if a guy's going on the forum and saying, I don't like this, it's broken, I'm upset about this, ultimately he's still invested, and it's when players go quiet that we start to worry. It isn't to say we're ignoring anyone. It's like, as long as we can keep people bringing issues up, that's when we can fix it. That's when we can work with our community. That's when we can do changes that benefit everybody. And so please keep bringing these things up,
I'm going to
actually for us to get better.
I'm going to write a song about suppression. That'll be my
That's how
gift
invested
to
you are.
That's how invested I am. I mean, I had an adjustment period to the game. I mean, there are so many things that moved so far forward as far as first-person shooters and the technology and the engine and all of that. And I had a lot of frustration in adjusting to the game. It's a different play style. And, once I turned that corner, I've been having a ton of fun playing the game. And I've had, my rage moments, and I think all of us gamers have that. But by and large, pre-patch, I had made those adjustments and was really enjoying, improving my my skills in the game. And I feel I was getting a lot better. Now, some of the stuff in the patch, suppression, working on, finding that weapon combo, it's been it has been an adjustment again, but I find that some things have you kind of adjust to some of the things that might not have necessarily been right, but they were there. And so now that those are fixed, you find new issues like your tank. I love playing in tanks. I like the tank war. And now I just I can't do it effectively. So, for me, that's some frustration. If you have people that like running the attack helicopters, I'm sure that they love the effectiveness against the tanks. They don't like the effectiveness of the Stinger against them. You're never going to please everybody. But I think that, there are still some things that if you swing that metronome back to sort of the happy medium, it's going to be pretty fantastic. Because there are some definitely new frustrating issues introduced with the patch, but I can appreciate that making an adjustment that large is man, what a challenge.
I appreciate that. It is a huge challenge, and I think that there are some outstanding issues. I've said it before, though, that I believe in a dynamic game. We are alive in a changing environment, and even if we don't roll a patch out, there will be a different tactic this week that somebody posts on a forum that shows up, and then next week somebody will find a counter to that tactic, and it's part of the emergent aspect of Battlefield and what brings Battlefield moments and what really makes us unique. I think what I try to avoid is kind of what I call the all-powerful combo. And that's we actually have that a pillar of Battlefield, which is no one player should be able to do everything on the battlefield. No one tank guy, no one jet pilot, no one helicopter pilot, no one infantry. Right. And sometimes you flirt with guys who can do it. I mean, arguably the engineer is pretty damn powerful, but he will lose a long-range battle against a sniper, and he will lose a medium-range battle against an assault guy. If he can play his cards right and keep himself in situations that he is kind of competitive, then he can be really effective. And I think that's interesting. That's a really a level that players who are thinkers can excel in Battlefield, because it's not just that twitch. It can be that twitch, but it doesn't have to just be that twitch. It's the layers of Battlefield that really make it successful for us. And I think what we've tried to do with this patch, and what we largely have been successful with this patch, is eliminating those kind of all-powerful combos that inevitably crop up in a game that's this big, this complex. So, and we're not immune to it inside of our own office, where, I had one of the executives come down and say, "Dude, what did you do to the FAMAS?" I'm like, balanced it, and it's like, I was like, and we got into a conversation, and I think this is the good thing, is the first week or two of a patch landing, it's always, the outrage boils to the top, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, dude, I was running a great game with a FAMAS, a suppressor, and a foregrip. I could get him at long range, I could get him at close range, it didn't really matter, everything was cool. And actually that's kind of uncool, because the game gets boring and stale. Like, if you got one gun that you can go to for every situation, you don't have to think tactically, you don't have to change your style. And with that exec, I got into a conversation where I was like, so how are you using the FAMAS? He's like, well, mostly I'm running close quarters and I'm hip shooting. And I'm like, okay. He's like, and now I'm losing those mid-range engagements. I'm like, okay, so keep your close combat, switch your suppressor out for a flash suppressor, or switch out for a laser sight, and depending on what you're running, or and then back that up with a good secondary. Go Glock 18 if you're running a gun with a mid-range, and that's customization level, and the thought process that can go into Battlefield is, I think, the strength of it and what makes it unique. And I think, shameless plug here, I think that's what also is going to come out in the close quarters pack, where even if we are indoors, and a lot of our players have said, dude, that's not Battlefield. Well, you can look at what's been written about close combat and, close quarters, and, IGN's played it, and they're like, well, we didn't expect this, but it plays like Battlefield still. it feels like Battlefield. There's still team play. There's still shootouts that are feel Battlefield. And I think we've got one of the best shooting experiences in the industry, if not the best. Mm-hmm. And to give players who like that something other than Operation Metro to grind all day, that's a big bonus for us. And we know that that's not going to be a everybody loves it. But we've also announced Armored Kill, which is literally the cardinal opposite. And yeah, we haven't said a whole lot, but I think there's a compelling package of DLCs, and the DLC team, they're taking risks to bring new content and bring new styles and try out what is and what isn't Battlefield and get that response from people.
What was that third DLC again?
I'm not really sure yet. I tried.
I thought I could maybe trip you up, something like that. So, getting to a couple of community questions.
Sure.
Is it possible, I guess, have you guys ever thought of doing test servers where people could pre-test patch changes?
That guy should rewind the podcast about 20 minutes. The thought has definitely been there. It's not obviously something that hasn't happened yet. We did do beta patches in the past, and so we have done that. It's always a challenge of balancing what resources you put into making an update and how much does it take to do a beta version of it, and how do you get it out to customers and consumers. And that's not to say a no, but it's also not saying a yes. It's something we're aware of that could benefit, and we definitely avoid some of the more obvious issues.
Right. You kind of have like a douchebag server where people could just go and try to grief other people. Heroes has it, Play for Free has it. It's also one of those things of, you've got to set it up for Frostbite, you've got to set it up for Origin, or you've got to work with Microsoft, or you've got to work with Sony, you've got to figure out what the best path is. And you've got partners, whether they're internal or they're external, that, it's not as easy as, I envy Minecraft, right? We don't get to drop a .jar on the internet and say, go play. It's not technically possible. We have to have a system in place to get people into it, and that takes time and takes effort and takes energy that might be spent better doing other things. I think we've rolled out a ton of awesome stuff with this update. I think there's still things that are on the table that players can get excited about, and I hesitate to go into exactly what those are because I'm not up on the whole PR bit, but I'd love to hear some more questions from the community if I can answer them. Sure. Yeah, I've got one from AirShark79 on the website. He asked, where to go here? How far do you believe the development team shapes Battlefield 3 based on what they personally think is fun?
That's definitely the start. We actually have a motto at DICE. We have quality, innovation, and fun. We want to be making a great game. That's where the quality comes in, and we want to be pushing the boundaries. Frostbite is definitely an innovation within the shooter space. It puts us in a position where we can continue to advance Battlefield as a series, and also help all of EA by doing that. And we have some extremely talented people there. And then, of course, we also have fun, where it's really important to us that not only is our work fun, but are we enjoying the games that we make? Are we enjoying the games we play? Are we playing them at lunch? If we're not playing Battlefield at lunch, then, of our own free time on the public server, or, in that half an hour when you're supposed to be going home, but you can slide one more round in there,
Right.
Then we are failing as a company. We are a games company. We are gamers. From top to bottom, whether you're the janitor or whether you're a senior designer or an executive, there's not a single person at DICE or EA who isn't a gamer. We are gamer first, and I think that's really important. I think, I would point towards the blog post I wrote a couple of weeks ago where there's a transition from the game being ours to the game being yours, as in the community's, after it launches. Mm-hmm. And you have to really weigh choices that aren't pure advancements. the change in suppression was hotly debated within our own studio, within our own community groups and our own managers, and ultimately we decided, well, we'll try to go forward with it.
Right.
So I think it's moving now towards the it's your game, and that's why we've gone to the effort of putting change lists out ahead of time. If we can't launch a patch in a test, at least we can put a change log out there, and we can say, this is what we intend to do. What do you think? And we got a lot of good feedback on that. We did that several ways over the course of several months, and I think that's been hugely successful and has directly translated into changes, or in several cases, reversing changes that were universally disliked by the community.
Interesting. Yeah, well, that's very important what you touched on about having fun with the game you're creating. If you guys went home and started to play another game, and it would say something, and eventually your heart wouldn't be in it, and you'd be looking for different avenues.
That was somebody actually asked a great question that just scrolled by. Is the suppression effect, is that something that could be adjusted on a server side? So if you rent a server, is that something you could dial down, for example?
Technically feasible, not currently possible, as in it hasn't been implemented that way. But it's definitely something that we could take away as being a rent-a-server option in the future, seeing what we end up with. And yeah, that's a good one. Thanks for that question.
Yeah.
I'll write that one down and shoot it off to the server team and see what they come back with. It might be really simple.
Do you know? Obviously, you're not on the server team, but do you know anything about the reserve slots for servers? Why they did away with that, and if it's coming back?
I don't. Sorry.
No problem. There's something missing from Bad Company 2, I guess that people were looking for. Speaking of Bad Company 2, what is your guys' support level of that now, and would there be any sort of patch possible?
I'm going to go with another no comment. I'm working on BF3, and I really don't have insight into the other parts of the series, the Battlefield series right now. It's a good question for somebody like Zinto who can pursue that answer a little bit better than I could.
Right.
Another one I'm seeing a bit of is VoIP on the PC outside of like the parties on Battle Log. So, have voice communications with your random squad mates, for example. Is that something that's possible, intentionally omitted, or impossible? Been discussed or not?
Wow, that's one of those issues I really don't want to touch with a 10-foot stick. We're aware that players are not happy with the voice options on PC. I know that's a kind of a shitty answer, but without having better insight into the process and mostly being focused on the gameplay tweaking, I don't feel like I can give the community a fulfilling answer there. Sorry.
No problem. With the upcoming DLC, I don't know if this has been announced or not, but will we be getting new guns and stuff? Like specifically, a lot of people are mentioning XM8.
I don't believe we are confirming which new guns, but we have confirmed that there are new guns. So I'm not going to go into how many, what type, which ones. I know the community has been, pixel hunting on all of our videos, and I've seen a pretty good list of some people, but some of them have been missed and some of them have been wrong. I think as well that the content in that pack, even if you're not a close quarters interested player, there is likely to be some content that as we go forward and we get closer to that June time frame where we'll put close combat out, is keep tuned. You may not care about close combat in terms of playing TDM or that experience, but I think there's something in there for all the players, whether you're a big open battlefield player or a close combat player, or both.
Great. Yeah, that's that's something I'm looking forward to. Obviously I'm more of a tank person in general, but getting a whole new experience with a game I'm already familiar with is kind of exciting for me. Do you guys anticipate any tweaking of this patch or further patching before DLC, or would we kind of would you be able to roll it into the download type thing?
Well, I think what I can just say is obviously we've announced the both close combat and armored kill. We've announced the third expansion, which we haven't detailed yet, a DLC, I should say. And I think that's an indicator for the commitment we have to BF3, but I can't go into specifics about dates or probabilities or things like that. Beyond close combat will be in June, and I think people will be happy with I hope people will be happy with the level of support that we bring to Battlefield, and I'm sure they'll continue to let us know if they aren't.
Got your ammo right here.
Let's get this patch out on all platforms before we talk about another.
Yeah.
There's some poor Xbox guy going, dude, I want my patch.
Where's my patch?
I'll take one.
Patch? Why do we always last? Like, dude, Xbox, we don't hate you. I promise.
Yeah.
We just poke fun at my buddy Daniel, but don't worry, we forgot about Xbox. We didn't forget about Xbox. Sorry. But mine's sitting under my TV right now and going, I want my Battlefield patch. I'm like, yeah, I know, buddy. I do too.
Yeah, soon. Do you guys get notified as soon as it's ready to go, or is it kind of a couple weeks prior to the date? It kind of seems to me like you it's being sent away for approval or whatever, and then it just kind of drops without prior notice. Is that correct?
Every situation is unique. Sometimes we know a month ahead, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we can say and sometimes we can't. And there's so many variables and things, and it's one of those mystery processes, I think, that players are like, okay, so is this Microsoft's fault? Is this DICE's fault? Is this Sony's fault? Because they have a deal with them? Everybody wants to get the patch out. Microsoft wants it out. We want it out. Sony wants it out. It's in everybody's benefit to improve the game that's on the platforms, continue supporting it. It makes everybody look good. And everybody's also interested in making sure that it's a quality launch when it hits. So that's what we're all focused on, and that's what we're all pushing for.
Perfect. So I have a interesting one that hopefully you'll be able to comment on. So understanding that the community is active on major social media, and they usually berate you with the negative aspects of whatever your action is or the game in general. With respect to the messages you provide from your own personal account, is that a hindrance? Is it a hindrance to acknowledge the problems or deal with their existence, or do you kind of want to always acknowledge their problems in general?
I think there's a balance. I mean, obviously, if the problem is something that we consider to be an exploit or a cheat, we have a policy of not acknowledging that publicly. Knowing that, I have commented on a few Reddit threads or things saying, yes, we're aware of that issue, but we try not to publicly propagate it, and more or less. It's always a balance of players don't want to know just that we know. They want to know that we fixed it, and they want to know when we fixed it. And that when question is super tricky. And it throws a big wrench in the works trying to put a when question together. And it's as frustrating for us as it is for the community. Maybe more to, it's that thing of having a secret that you can't tell anyone, right? Mm-hmm. It's not fun. We're not happy about it, and I don't know enough about what the process is and those sort of things to say why or why not we aren't giving that detail.
Right.
I think there are definitely some clear places where it's better to say yes, this is an issue, or yes, we're listening to it. Suppression, tank balance, air-to-air missiles in the patch. There's three that I'm aware of that we want to see addressed and that we hopefully will. It's always one of those things of you don't really want to say anything until you're 100% positive that you will make a change and that you will make it to the consumers. Or there can be all sorts of backlash for that if it doesn't.
Yeah, that's something Daniel talked about before, where it's better to say something is confirmed rather than say, hey, guess what? Battle Recorder is going to be in this patch, and then it doesn't happen. You know, you're going to get that backlash as well. So.
Can you imagine Battlelog if that happened? Like, if I just said right now, and please don't quote me on this, but, you know, like, let's say, dinosaurs in the next patch.
Yeah.
Like, everyone would be like, oh my god, dinosaurs in the next patch. And then there's no dinosaurs.
There's no
dinosaurs. People would be like, what? You know, and somebody is going to put up somewhere that dinosaurs are in the next patch because I've said that now. And that's the other tricky part is, like, everything you say, Twitter is especially fun because, like, you know, you would think that the smaller the message, the clearer it would be.
Right, yeah.
It's kind of the opposite.
Yeah, so.
You know? Like, I've actually gotten to the point of saying to certain things, if I know a yes or no answer, that's all I say.
Yeah.
And, you know, somebody said, you know, if I can give them a yes or no, I think that's definitely a better thing. We can't always do that.
Yeah. Well, just before we let you go here, just a couple small ones. Colorblind mode on consoles. Have you discussed that?
I don't know the status. Sorry.
No. But that's something you're aware of, and
I'm aware the request
future?
is out there from the community, definitely.
Okay. And fall damage, have you looked at that more? Are you happy where it is now, or does it still need to be tweaked?
We definitely make a big bit of... I've been talking for a while. We definitely made a big change in this patch. I think it's a big improvement. And again, it might be one of those things where players can find some cases where it doesn't work. I have seen a few comments about, oh, I still fell off this rock and fell to my death. I would love to see, and if there's a spot people can reproduce that consistently and I can go in and take a look at it. You know, there is some intentional fall damage. One thing I've definitely noticed, and here's an exclusive for you guys, we detailed this in the patch notes, but I think people didn't quite pick up on it. We made some pretty substantial changes to the way that parachute physics work, and I think players haven't adjusted to this yet. If you hold forward when you're using your parachute, you will drop faster. If you hit the ground while you're holding forward, you will take damage because you fall that fast.
Right.
So there's a strategy to getting down to the ground. It's also the opposite. If you hit backwards, you will actually flare your parachute, and you will descend slower. So if you want to get down on the ground real quick, you want to hold your parachute down until you're about 20 meters below the ground, or hold your button forward until you're 20 meters below the ground, and then tap your backwards button or hold your backwards button. You'll flare, you'll land like a butterfly. And that's something I know some players have not picked up on. They're bailing out of their chopper and they're holding the forward button to hit the ground running, and then they're taking damage, and they're like, dude, what? WTF?
Right.
Try out some different things. It works slightly differently now.
Interesting. So I guess we'll kind of wrap it up with this one last one, and hopefully it'll be an easy one for you. What would be the best place for people to give feedback, and what would you like that feedback to be? Like specific, or videos, something like that.
I love the YouTube videos of, I hate the ones that are of exploits out there. But I love a YouTube video that reproduces something. It's like, okay, here's an issue that I have, and I can look at it, I can see it. We try to use video as much as possible in our own internal bug testing, and then posting the link to the video on Battlelog with a good description of what happened, or how it happens, or how frequently it happens, is a huge thing for us as well. If you can say, well, this happens in the same spot every time, and here's what I did, and here's the video of it, that's like a perfect scenario for us to go in and say, okay, we can find that, we can fix that, or we can find that and improve that, or whatever. That's the best information we can possibly get. It's a YouTube video with a description from Battlelog and a link. And several of those have been out there, and several of those have already gone around the office, and we've addressed issues that way. And that's double thumbs up for us, and very, very helpful.
Perfect. I think you made a couple for the alpha, didn't you, Colin?
Yeah, but I just private linked those directly through Jinto, actually, so they weren't posted on YouTube.
If you there's a good one. If you've got an exploit, if you think you found something that, is a hole in the game, or you can get through this thing to get out of the world or whatever, do the YouTube video, make it private, send the link to Zinto, send the link to Crash, send the link to email it to DICE. There's like a support at dice.se or something like that. I'm not sure what it is, but heck, you can send it to me. I'll make sure it gets to the right people. Just please, because the quality of everybody's experience is involved when it comes to exploits, the more private you can make that, the better the experience remains for all the players, and it does not have a bearing on, a lot of players have this idea that, well, if I post this YouTube video and I link it on Reddit and I put it out on Twitter and I post it on Battlelog and then I do this and then it shows up on Facebook and everywhere else that I can think of, Google Plus, and I don't think I've left any major ones out there, then it'll get fixed faster.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It just means that more people know about it and more people abuse it. We fix things as fast as we can. The anti-cheat measure, the anti-exploit measure at DICE is part of that quality, part of that fun.
Right.
And we want to be making sure that we get those things fixed, and we would very much value those things as being a private communication.
Well, great. I really appreciate you coming on again. As Colin Tacky Jacks in the background.
Oh, sorry. I thought I had muted. I'd actually switched the mute off. Awesome. It's that mechanical keyboard.
Yeah. Tactile feedback. Yeah, thanks again for coming on, Alan. We really appreciate it. Did we miss anything that you want to talk about that you thought it would be important to share at all?
I think we covered a lot. Again, I think there's plenty of things out there. I mean, I literally do talk about Battlefield all day, so
yeah.
But in an hour, I think we covered the big ones, and maybe another couple of weeks from now, some other things come up, and we want to have a follow up. I'd be cool with that. And it's always a good time to talk to you guys, and you're friendly, but you also ask some tough questions, so I appreciate that.
Well, we try and balance it and filter out a little bit of what's going on in the chats and forums and whatnot, because we do want you to come back. So.
Yeah, I mean, if we attacked you the whole time, it probably wouldn't go so well. But
yeah, the inevitable conflict of gaming journalism, right?
Yeah, exactly. So great. Thanks everybody for listening live on the live stream. We will have this up very shortly for you to listen. Thanks again, Alan, and
thanks for having me.
We will talk to all you guys later.
Absolutely. All right, I'll take us down. Oh, I'm clackety-clacking again. This has been episode 32 of the Don't Revive Me Bro Battlefield Community Podcast. Thank you all for showing up, and thank you especially to Alan Kertz for taking out some of his time on a Sunday to talk to us. It was fantastic. We'll talk to you soon.
This has been another episode of Don't Revive Me Bro's Battlefield Community Podcast. Catch you next time.